The storm began long before the clouds gathered in the sky. It started in Daniel Foster's chest the moment he heard the billionaire's voice echo across the marble lobby, cold, sharp, and final, telling him he was fired. The words hit him like a punch to the gut, and for a moment, the world around him blurred. He wasn't just losing a job. He was losing the fragile stability he'd been holding together for his 7-year-old daughter, Lily, ever since her mother walked away. One sentence from a man who had everything threatened to destroy the little life Daniel had worked so desperately to protect. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of rising again, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. The truth was that Daniel hadn't expected the day to go wrong. If anything, he had woken up with a rare sense of hope. Lily had drawn him a picture for good luck that morning, 2 stick figures holding hands under a bright yellow sun. "For you, Daddy," she said, wiping sleep from her eyes. He carried that little drawing folded in his wallet like a reminder that love existed even on the darkest days. When he stepped into the towering gold-glass building of Aldridge Enterprises, he felt, in a small way, ready to keep pushing forward, but life rarely warns us before it shifts beneath our feet. Inside the executive lobby, Richard Aldridge, the billionaire CEO known for his ruthless decisions and expressionless face, stood waiting. His tailored suit fit like it had been sculpted onto him, his eyes as cold as the polished floors. Daniel knew instantly that something was wrong. The air felt tight, suffocating. His co-workers looked at him with a sympathy they didn't dare voice, and then the words came, "You're fired." He didn't argue. He didn't beg. Shock had a way of numbing even the strongest instincts. All he could think about was Lily's tiny shoes lined neatly by the door at home, the lunchbox he packed for her every night, the overdue bills pinned silently on the fridge like ghosts whispering reminders. He walked out of the building with everything he owned in a small box, his heart shaking in his chest. Rain began to fall just as he stepped onto the sidewalk, the cold drops masking the tears he refused to let fall. He spent the next weeks chasing any opportunity he could find, taking on temporary jobs, standing in endless lines, filling out forms until his hands ached. But life didn't seem to offer him a break. When he couldn't pay the electricity bill, the lights flickered out. When he couldn't finish a shift because Lily had a fever, his part-time employer replaced him within a day. Meals became smaller, sleep shorter, hope thinner. Yet every night, Lily would curl up beside him and whisper, "It's okay, Daddy. We're together." And somehow, those words kept him going. Meanwhile, far away, in a world of glass towers and private jets, Richard Aldridge sat in his penthouse office staring at a simple envelope. Weeks earlier, while sorting employee records, he had noticed Daniel's unusual work patterns, extra shifts, emergency leave, sudden schedule changes. Something about it had bothered him, gnawed at him. He didn't like loose ends, so he ordered a deeper check. What he found was a picture he hadn't expected, a single father battling the world on his own, sacrificing everything for a little girl who depended on him. He remembered firing Daniel, he remembered the emptiness in the man's eyes, but he never knew the story behind them. Guilt was not a familiar feeling to Richard Aldridge, but for once, it sat heavily on his chest. Driven by a strange restlessness, he decided to see for himself. He visited Daniel's neighborhood, a world so different from his own that it felt almost foreign. Children played soccer in narrow alleys, paint peeled from buildings, and the cold wind seeped through every crack. When Richard knocked on Daniel's door, he expected anger. But Daniel didn't look angry when he opened it. He just looked tired, exhausted in a way that went deeper than the skin. Richard stood there, saying nothing for a long moment, taking in the sight of the dim apartment lit only by a small lamp, Lily's drawings taped proudly on the walls, and the undeniable reality that the man before him was barely holding on. That night became the shift neither of them expected. Upon seeing Daniel's situation, Richard felt a crack inside the stone fortress he called a heart. He realized he had judged a man without understanding him, punished someone whose only crime was trying to be a good father in a world that rarely rewarded goodness. The next morning, he made a decision that would change both their lives. He summoned Daniel to his office, but this time not with coldness. Daniel arrived hesitantly, unsure and nervous, bracing for another blow. But instead of the harsh tone he remembered, Richard spoke in a way Daniel had never heard before. He explained that he had made a mistake he wanted to fix. He offered Daniel a new position, one he had created specifically for him, with better hours, higher pay, and flexibility to care for Lily. He also offered to sponsor Lily's education and support Daniel in rebuilding the things life had taken from him. Daniel couldn't believe it. For the first time in months, he felt the tightness in his chest loosen. It wasn't just a job, it was hope being handed back to him. Piece by piece, days turned into weeks, and the transformation was remarkable. Daniel regained his confidence, his life regained its balance, and Lily blossomed in ways Richard never expected. On some days, Richard visited the small apartment, joining them for simple meals, listening to Lily's endless stories. He discovered a warmth he had never known, something that money had never given him, something real. Slowly, the billionaire who had once fired him became a silent guardian of their little family, learning compassion from the man he once dismissed and love from the child who offered it freely. And Daniel learned that sometimes the universe takes everything away just so it can return something far better, something unexpected, something healing. If this story touched your heart even a little, please make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe so it can reach others who need hope today.